All right, I got 9 o'clock on the money. My timing is a little bit off on the music. Sorry about that, but the last song was "The
And
Weather's
start,
Here. I Wish You Were Beautiful."
and I
Most
can join
progressive.
in once you start my video. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, you want me to start your video too?
I know, prima
Demanding, demanding.
donna, high maintenance. Boy, I tell you, like Aerosmith says, girls, girls, girls.
There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, you did a very nice job putting a whole list of things together as talk about for contracts,
All right.
and we'll cover those in a minute. But I've got two other topics I want to bring up that I think are relevant for everybody to learn right now. And one of them, and I'm not going to share the names because it's not really important or relevant, but we have an agent who had an EBBA signed correctly, filled out, signed, initialed. It was for Pinellas and Manatee County. Thank goodness. And we heard through the grapevine that the consumer bought a house in Parrish, which is in Manatee County. And we heard through the grapevine that it was an $800,000 to $1 million house. And our BBA called for a 3% commission and a $325 transaction fee, which is perfect. So guess what? Now what?
Who's on first?
I called Danny, our lawyer from the title company. He says, Craig, I don't do litigation, but you need a litigation attorney. I said, we'll recommend one. And he did. Had a nice talk with a guy named Nick. And Nick says, well, I'm going to send you an engagement letter. Why do attorneys send engagement letters?
Just like our BBAs or commitments, and they line up exactly what it is we do for you, how far we'll go on the case with you, expectations.
Yep. And compensation.
Compensate. Oh, of course. How shy of
So we're going to send a demand letter to the buyer because now we've got him dead to rights. He definitely signed an EBBA promising to pay us, and he went around us and bought it for sale by owner. And we have two choices. We can lay down in the grass and just let it go, or we can defend ourselves and say, hey, wait, no, you screwed us.
Yeah.
We put time and effort, and I got to back up our agent, right? Because she did everything right. So we're going to engage him. He's going to send me the engagement letter. We got to find out the details. Now, the one thing I'm worried about is we haven't closed, this house hasn't closed yet. So I don't really want to make a lot of noise because if we make noise, then he might back out of the contract and then never close, and then we got no cause of action. And his cause of action is good until July because that's how long the EBBA is good for. So he could theoretically, wait until July, then go buy a house and not have to owe us anything. So you got to kind of strategically play these things out and see what the right thing to do is. So we're going to find out when it closes. Then we'll engage the attorney, which is probably going to be, I don't know, what do you think, Kathleen? $500 to $1,000 probably to write the letter?
About 500 to $800. Yeah.
$500, $800 to write the letter. And then if we go to litigation, oh God, that's going to take potentially what, years?
Well, it just depends. We're going to go to mediation first, so it might get resolved there, and you may end up splitting the difference at mediation
Yeah,
to get something rather than nothing.
I would rather get something than spend maybe $20,000 or $30,000 on legal fees to win $20,000 or $30,000.
It's too much.
So
And
these
the
are
commission,
real life real estate terms that we just have to deal with that we don't want to deal with, right?
no.
But this is a
No.
dishonest consumer who's just doing us wrong. And we did everything the way we're supposed to do it. So
They're
it
out
could
there.
happen to you too. And
Oh yeah, it will. It will happen.
we can't do anything. I mean, I can't say we did anything wrong at all, but what could we have done maybe better?
Consistent follow-up, perhaps. Um,
Reinforcement of the fact that, hey, you're signing a contract. And this contract means if you buy anything, whether it's a for sale by owner or a listed property or anything, I am your agent and I get paid per the terms of this agreement. And
have
if we're
face to face on these things. Yeah, you know what? On these buyer agreements, you're absolutely right. It's not just follow-up, but you really do have to have a FaceTime with that person. Either if they're too busy, do a Zoom call. You really have to go through it piece by piece because if you don't, they really don't understand it. So I do that on. I know it takes extra time, but this is the new frontier. We have to get used to it.
well, would you rather trick them and get burned later? No,
No, no,
Tracy just wrote and makes very sure you're very clear on what the contract says and what it means.
she's right.
All right.
Yeah,
100% she's right. Okay, I'm going to look at one more thing, and this is I'm going to share my screen for this one because it's about short sales. And I've been talking about short sales because I know they're coming our way,
sure.
and I want to make sure we understand. Okay, sharing the screen. No, which am I sharing? Yeah, I'm sharing the right screen.
There you are. That's
Okay.
Kelly,
Oh,
Kelly's email.
yes, Kelly's. But this is Tom Abraham. So I want you guys to understand. So a short sale is when a consumer owes less on the property than it's worth, market value wise.
Yeah.
And that means they probably leveraged it, took the money and bought an RV or something, and they no longer have the cash to justify it. And they get in trouble, they lose their job, or they do something else. So what Tom did, and Tom says, hey, please find attached a short sale acknowledgement to place on the MLS as required addendum. Also, we need to lower the list price to 270. You'll need to advise on the listing broker remarks to see the required addendum. Also, we'll need to use the standard short sale addendum when the offer does come in. And then he's got an attachment here, which I will share.
Tom's really good. He's been doing this for many, many, many years.
Yes. And it takes a system to get this done.
It does. It is a huge system.
So can you see my short sale acknowledgement now?
Can you pop it up a little bit bigger? Pretty
Yeah.
please. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
There we go.
So it says, and this is interesting, it says buyer and seller acknowledge that the purchase and sale contract and all, this is going to the MLS, and all terms, conditions, commissions are subject to third parties' approval, and said contract is subject to the full satisfaction of all debt related to the subject property. Buyer and seller acknowledge that the following language will be used in the purchase and sale contract to outline the costs related to the short sale. Now, this is an attorney who's representing the seller who owes more on the property than it's worth, right? Do you want
Right.
an attorney representing you in a situation like that?
Absolutely.
I would say yes. And
Absolutely.
he's putting it in writing, disclosing buyer will pay $4,250 contribution towards seller's attorney's fees and up to $5,000 toward junior liens, third-party claims, real estate commission shortfalls. So let's talk about that.
Mhm.
So when you think about a first mortgage, that's the first mortgage. It's in first position.
Right.
And the second mortgage would be in
Be a
second
hu-
position.
Yeah. Could be a
So
HELOC, anything. Yeah.
in the event of a first mortgage that's short, how much money is a first mortgage holder willing to give the second mortgage holder?
Nope.
Nope, nothing. Is a
Nope.
second mortgage holder necessary to release their lien in order to pass clear title? Yes.
Nope. Yep. And
So
sometimes
chances of a
IRS
second
liens.
mortgage holder saying, sorry, I'll just walk away for nothing is slim to nothing. So the
Ah,
attorney who's done this before, it says, and up to $5,000 toward junior liens, third-party claims, real estate commission shortfalls, attorney's fees, and other encumbrances, plus any seller concessions approved as an additional settlement charge to the HUD-1. The additional contribution or the buyer premium shall be paid to the seller's attorney, Abraham and Sweeney, or seller's attorney to distribute as discerned by seller's attorney. Right? Buyer will contribute the contribution outlined above. So the purchase price is this, the contribution is that. So the total cost is this. Is that called full disclosure?
it is. It is.
100%. It's called full disclosure. But there's a system behind it, and there's people, professionals negotiating the sale. So all that means is if you're the buyer and you want to pay 270 for the house, understand there's another 9,250. So you're really paying 279, 250, or you
Right.
make offer subject to understanding that.
Yeah.
Okay. So just
Yeah.
as these things come, Tom Abraham's going to probably be involved with us more and more. But I think every week now for the last 4 weeks, I've been having short sale discussions with agents that are coming through.
Yeah.
So,
They are. They are.
and they're just more and more and more. And we do have a system in place to handle that. And I hope you guys don't have to deal with them. But if you do, we do have a system, and I want you to know that.
Well,
Okay.
he makes it smooth. He really does. He makes it very, very easy. And he's the one that's got all the paperwork at his disposal, so he's able to just go through it because that's all he focuses on. This is not something a seller wants to try to do on their own. It's just not, it's not doable.
Right. Well, you said makes it easy. No, he doesn't make it easy because it's not easy. It's going to take time. I mean, please understand, this is a lengthy process to get a lender to agree to take less, to get a second mortgage holder to agree to take substantially less, and to get the approvals from the right servicing partners and all that other stuff. You're dealing with the better part of 6 months or more. And
Right, but the easy part is he has the experience and knowledge to walk you through it. So
right.
you don't have to second guess everything you're doing is what I'm getting at. Yeah, no, short sales are not short. They're very long. They should call them long sales.
Long sales.
Yeah,
Going to
long as you can get.
okay, I need to move this document. Give me 1 second, sorry. This comes over here. Nope. This comes over here. Then I put it back here and then go back to share my normal screen. Okay, so here's the document you came up with for us today, which
We
I
don't see
think
it.
is really fun.
We don't see it yet.
Oh, you will in a second.
Okay.
Okay, so Zoom, share my screen. I just have too many monitors up and running right now.
It's like that. I had to shut down a bunch of stuff too because I was starting to get the messages that the resources are low. I'm like, okay, so is my battery.
All right. So some of this is going to be very basic for a lot of you,
Right.
and some of it's going to be not. But as we get deeper into it, I think you'll find more. Is that big enough?
A little bit bigger, just a little bit.
How about that?
Sorry.
Okay. So
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
timelines. I can summarize this real quickly for you. There's 3 contracts. You got the FAR bar, the FAR bar as is, and the Florida Real Estate Sale and Purchase Contract, which is called the CRSP. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And what we have to
Right.
remember as we're dealing with these is that the time frames are different. We use calendar days in the FAR bar contracts, and
Yep.
we use business days in the CRISP contract.
Correct.
And the difference is weekends don't count when you're talking about business days. So you got to count differently.
Yeah.
Right. And then
Yep.
it goes on to say in this period, this is on the boring part, but vacant land and commercial contracts both use business days as well.
Yep.
Right. And then business days is go on to define that if it falls on a weekend or a national holiday, it's automatically extended until 5 p.m. the next business day. Notice it does 5 p.m. So it's not midnight, it's 5 p.m.
Right.
So that's just understand most of the time you guys are dealing with the FAR bar contracts, which are calendar days, and the same thing happens. If it falls on a Saturday, Sunday, or legal holiday, it gets extended to the next business day.
Yep.
So I think we could skip that. There's a lot of time on that. And then, but once again, commercial land and vacant land use.
Yep.
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 This is a good one. Why don't you
Yeah, we see this a lot with referral agreements, and we have to remember, just like any contract, remember what we learned in real estate school 100 years ago about the statute of frauds, that funny term that we learned, but yet we like forget what it is. Well, what that really means, you have to have a beginning and an end. It can't go on for infinity. So on referral agreements, please, 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 we're seeing this a lot. You have to have a beginning and an end. We can't have a referral agreement that goes on forever and ever and ever. It has to be a timeline. And good
which is
point.
annoying because the agreement does say never expires. And you guys send those to me and they say never expires, and I cancel them out and say, nope, I'm not signing this.
And here's why. And it's not because we're trying to be snarky. We can and may be disciplined by the Florida Real Estate Commission. Oh, that thing called FREC. Remember that friendly word? Said no one ever. Failing to include a definite expiration date in a listing agreement. It's same thing with contracts. We have a timeline. Same thing when you're putting in the paragraphs about the title company. That's another thing they can ding us on. You got to have a title company in the contracts. That's got to be in there. You can't just say TBD. And you're going to get co-brokes that send it over to you. Just like when you're calculating the contracts on the amount at the very bottom where it says cash to close or funds to close and all that good stuff. Can't put balance in there. What does balance mean? It's ambiguous. I'm throwing all this stuff because this week Craig and I have been getting spitballs at us and all types of stuff coming at us. And this is a big one. So this is why we do what we do. An agent and a
It's
seller
funny.
should. Hmm.
I was on a seminar yesterday with Realogy or Anywhere or whatever you want to call them these days. Actually, no, it was Century 21. And it was called a competitive intel series, which they're going to do quarterly. And Peter Sobek, who you've met before, he's super, super smart, one of the best recruiters out there. He gave us a lot of stats. And one of the stats was, and we've heard this before, 71% of all agents did not have one closing last year. Right? But the good news is 38% of Century 21 agents had no closings last year. Sorry, that's spam. I have to take it. No, I'm kidding. 38%, so more than double. So when you're dealing with a real estate agent that doesn't have a lot of experience, they're going to make these little mistakes all the time because they're not trained and they work for what he called the cheap brands versus the value brands. So we are considered a value brand. Century 21 is a value brand. And the cheap brands would be your EXPs or your Keller Williams that don't really take responsibility for teaching their agents how to do business. So it's a very likely occurrence that you're going to get an offer from an agent who has no freaking clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's easy to write a listing agreement and not put a termination date. Let it go on forever. But that's a licensee could be disciplined by the real estate commission for doing that because it's just not right.
Yeah, we like our licenses. We want to keep them because we're going to be doing this till we're 105.
Right. The extension addendum to the contract gives members a quick, easy way to modify common contractually defined time periods, loan approval, commitment periods, inspection periods, title review periods. With that nice little addendum, has all the check boxes, but it says simply check the box for the time periods you wish to modify and have the addendum executed by the parties. But then it goes on to say, if a buyer needs additional time to secure financing, I don't agree with the statement. You should request that the seller grant an extension for the closing date and request an extension to the financing contingency term. I think that's subject to the situation. Right?
Well, really what they're saying there is don't assume that the seller's going to automatically extend the finance period if you don't have it in there.
Right.
So,
Your
having a
financing
nice
period is
check.
your financing period, your closing date is your closing date. If you move the closing date, you move the closing date, but you didn't move the financing period. So
Yeah,
if you
have a little.
represent the buyer, you better move your financing period.
That's right.
And the seller, you might not want to move your financing period because you may
Correct.
have it ready already.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all on which side of the house that you're representing. Offers and counter offers. This is always fun.
Go for it.
Sure. When you're presenting offers, a single agent and transaction agent must present all offers and counter offers in a timely manner unless a party has previously directed the agent to otherwise not do so in writing. So that's really important. It's not enough if they say, oh yeah, I don't want to see this and this and this. Nail it down in an email with them or somewhere.
We have that going on right now. We had an offer. Our offer was countered. Our buyer accepted the counter. And at the same time, another offer came in and the seller accepted that offer.
Ooh.
So now the seller's accepted two offers.
Ouch.
That's a problem. Right? Then the question became it's offer and communication and delivery. So when our buyer accepted, and I don't know the answer to this question, when our buyer accepted the counter offer, did we communicate that to the other agent? If we didn't, then we're going to be wrong because the seller accepted another offer without knowing because we didn't communicate that our buyer accepted the counter offer. So I don't know the answer to that question yet, but this is really important, right? Keep going.
Therefore, if the seller has previously directed his or her agent in writing that he or she shouldn't be presented with any offers written on a certain contract form, then it would not be a violation for the seller, single or transaction agent to refuse to present it to the seller. If the seller has not previously directed his or her single agent or transaction agent in writing then the agent must present same in a timely manner. And this is under Florida statute 475, 278, subsection 238. And got a quick story. A situation like that, thank God it wasn't us. Brokerage over here, an agent took an offer on I think it was a $6.8 million property. He didn't communicate with the seller that there was another offer that came through, because the one he had was his client. The property closes, neighbor talks to former seller, hey, I really wanted to buy that property. Why didn't you even look at my offer? Seller's like, what are you talking about? This went back to court and that agent lost, and they had to pay back every single penny. And we're talking a lot of coin. It was all over the news. This was it was one of these, I want to say it was a beach condo in Lombok Key. It wasn't one of our people. And again, it's all about education and getting excited about the offers and so forth. Remember, this is still your seller's decision. It's still their right to either accept or reject. So watch what you have in the way of directives. Make sure you have what you think you have in writing.
And the one thing I know you have, because I pre-checked the box in all of your contracts, it says seller refuses or authorizes the agent not to present verbal offers.
Yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
So you
That's
get a verbal
huge.
offer, even when on an email. No, it's not on the contract form. You can reply back, please put it on the contract form. My seller
Right.
has instructed me not to present offers.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
Keeps you out of contract jail.
This is a fun one. You do it. There's no law.
There, we can do it in stereo. There is no there's no law requiring that a buyer or seller to communicate in writing his or her decision to reject the other's offer. There's no Florida law that requires the seller to negotiate with each buyer in the order in which it was received. See, that's huge. A lot of times people think they have to have one, two, three, four. No, you don't. But what's a good idea, and it's in our Google Docs, there's a spreadsheet when you're in the multiple offer situation. It's great to plug that in there for the amount and so forth and when it came in. So that way you can keep it straight as to which one's which when you're going over it with your sellers.
Right. But I like to teach the practice that we never let the ball fall on our side of the net.
No.
So if somebody lobs over an offer to you, you at least lob it back with a counter offer. Let it fall on their side of the net, not yours.
Right.
So you'd
That's
have an
right.
obligation to answer them, but it's probably a best practice to at least say, hey, I appreciate you trying to lowball me, but we're not in that position. So here is what we will accept. And give them your best shot. Who knows where they're at?
It's true. It's true. And you never know where the seller's at on a deal. They might tell you a million times, I only will take X. I will only take X. But a situation may come up where they might be drowning and they're not telling you, and a cash offer comes in. Let's say it's $100,000 below what they want. That's still their decision. I've seen those kind of situations, and you zip it up, you give it to them, and you let them talk about it. It's their decision.
And this is a great negotiation point here, right? So when you do get an offer and you give it to your seller and they decide to counter, the counter offer serves as a rejection of the initial offer.
That's
So
right.
the minute they change one thing on that contract, they kick that offer out. Buyer's
Correct.
free to walk away. Now, if they
Yes.
sign that contract, they got a binding contract. If they make one change, they rejected that offer. Therefore, the initial offer is no longer on the table. If a seller receives multiple offers on a property, the seller is technically permitted to counter more than one offer at a time in writing. However, doing so could be complicated if the seller counters in writing more than one offer and each counter is accepted before the seller can communicate an intent to withdraw her counter to one of the buyers. The seller could be bound to multiple written contracts and thus have potential liability to those buyers. Use the counteroffer spreadsheet in Google Sheets.
Yeah, there's a good one in there. Chris put one together years ago, and it's really good. I still use it.
That's still best practice to me. Counter one offer at a time
Same.
and
Yes.
change your time for acceptance, because the counteroffer automatically goes on for 2 days,
Right.
stays alive
Yeah.
for 2 days. So even
Yeah.
though you countered one, they didn't answer in day
Sure.
one, you get an offer, then all of a sudden they accept that their offer is still there. You need to withdraw your first counteroffer to buyer number one. And if you guys get in that situation, please raise your hand. We'll tell you how
Yes,
to,
yeah.
but it's not a place to mess around.
No, 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 no. And we don't do this texting back and forth either. Now,
All right.
this is a good one. This is important on the appraisal contingency because this is something that's oftentimes misunderstood. There is not in your contracts a appraisal to the purchase price contingency built into the contract. So if you want the option to get out of the contract, you use your appraisal contingency. Even if the loans, let's say the loan will fall apart because it doesn't appraise, so forth, it doesn't guarantee any inferred or implied way of getting out of the contract unless you've got that in there. Of course, your lender, if it's within the 30-day window, and the financing falls apart, sure, but don't count on it just being the appraisal contingency, because if everything's all right and you've got the ability to come to the table with the extra money, you're going to come to the table with the extra money.
Yep.
And a lot of times folks misunderstand that. So,
Yeah, my favorite example of that is not everybody's putting 3.5% down. Some people are 20, 30, 40, 50% down.
right.
$500,000 house, I'm putting 50% down, that's 250. I'm only borrowing 250. The bank doesn't care how much it appraises for. As long as they get an appraisal at 250, they're good. So if
Right.
the appraises for 450, the bank says, I don't give a shit. I'll finance a 450 house for 250 all day long.
Exactly. It's your FHA and VA buyers that get into trouble if they don't have the extra money. And not because they don't have money, it's because of the finance terms, the structure. And FHA, especially on the 3% down, 3.5% down, most of those folks are really working hard to put money together.
Yep. We still see this on a standard basis.
Weekly. I don't know why. When you get an offer, when you're putting an offer together, if you're on the buyer side, you're representing the buyer, you're putting an offer together. You don't just check the boxes and get the addendums later. They're incorporated by reference. We say this over and over again, and most of you guys on here know that, but there's always a few that for whatever reason, I know you get to the heat of the moment, you get excited. I get that. But it's going to be a problem down the road when you try to get all those addendums signed later, and especially with condos, particularly with condos. You're going to find yourself in a kettle of fish, and you're going to be the one boiling, and it won't be the lobster. So just do it all the same time, because if you don't, and issues come up over and over and over again, you are damaging your client.
Well, I think it's more important when you're the listing agent and one of the quote unquote, my new term, cheap brands agents who don't do a lot of transactions, they deliver
Yeah,
you an offer and they check a box, but they don't include the addendum.
yeah.
It's your
They don't
job.
even know where to find
Somebody
it.
just
Yeah,
put in the chat, I have to clean up after their agents all the time.
yeah. I
And
hear
that is
you. I
part
feel
of
your
your
pain.
job. So if they're
Yeah.
coming in with just checking the box, then you need to add the addendum because they forgot to do it. Have your seller initial it, then their buyer needs to initial it to bring it into the contract. They should have done it, but they didn't. But it doesn't excuse you for letting it go by.
And we're seeing this a lot with investors. They're using contracts from 8 years ago. That's completely wrong. Ridiculous offers, ridiculous terms. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm sending this right back to you. You're not using the right contract. This is what you need. Boom, 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 boom. Don't waste my time.
If an executed contract has inconsistencies between pre-printed provisions and an addendum, the handwritten and typed terms will prevail over the pre-printed terms that are in direct conflict.
Yep,
That's scary.
it is. Don't
So
get creative
instead of
adding in additional
writing
terms.
their own stuff, they're overriding the contract itself. And
Please
that
don't
creates
do it.
really big pitfalls.
Yeah, writing in terms like buyer waives all loan conditions. Really? Really? Can the buyer waive all loan conditions? I've seen that. And I'm
Mhm.
like, no, no, hell to the no. We're not doing that.
Mhm. This one surprised me because I thought our contract said that closing will take place in the county where the property is located.
Our contracts do indicate where the closing's taking place, but it's not mandated that the closing has, let's say it's a Hillsborough County property. It doesn't have to close in Hillsborough County. It could be a title company somewhere else. God forbid there's an emergency or whatever else. It doesn't have to be in that particular county.
Well, it has to be changed because the contract does say the property will close in absence of another agreement. The property shall close.
Right, 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 right.
But if both buyers are in Tallahassee and they want to close in Tallahassee, we can close in Tallahassee.
Exactly, because we have virtual now, and that's where this is coming about.
Yeah.
A lot of virtual closings. That's why we're seeing more and more. And this has been a big topic of this a week. This week has been all about co-ops. Man, we've had so many questions come in on co-ops. And to just put it in a nutshell, the difference between a cooperative and a condo is the cooperative is a share. You're getting an interest. It's usually a corporation that owns the entity. It could be a bunch of mobile homes looking at the lake with little pieces of land attached to it. You got a share in that. And you're going to get a certificate of share certificate of that. Whereas with your condos, you actually do have those four walls that you're so, warm and fuzzy with, that's yours. But you don't have the land underneath it because that belongs to the condo association. So you get your property, otherwise known as a little box. So when you're buying condos,
There's a membership and an interest in like an LLC.
it sure is.
So
So
you
when you're,
own the unit, you own a percentage of the LLC that owns all of the units.
that's right. That's
Which
right.
takes a whole different type of financing, a whole different type of everything to get the deal closed.
Yes, you usually get cash on these. Oh, we got a chat. Are co-ops cheaper? Not necessarily. We see a lot of them in St. Pete. My mother-in-law had a couple of those. I remember learning my first co-ops about 15 years ago. About drove me crazy because the board member didn't know about issuing a share certificate. And long story short, I had to make her do her job, but that's another story. So not necessarily. You're going to see a lot of cooperatives along those beautiful pink streets in St. Pete. There's some beauties over there, downtown Straub Park, some gorgeous ones I bought and sold over there. We have some over here sprinkled in downtown and around the lake areas and so forth. So yeah, it really just depends on the location. So
Yeah,
yeah, you
so
become
make
a
sure a
shareholder.
condominium and a co-op is the way the asset is owned. You do not buy a co-op.
No.
Instead, you become a shareholder in the corporation that owns the entire co-op community, really, not just the building.
Right, and the shareholder it'll indicate the type of lease that it is of the cooperative. And that brings us to the next step. LLCs, this is a good one. We get this all the time. I know you get these calls too. When
Mhm.
you are getting ready to do a listing, make sure you make sure your first couple steps are, you don't just go to SunBiz and stop there. You want to go to IMAP, pull down the deed from the clerk of court. There's a link, a hyperlink that will come up. Get a copy of that deed. From there, you're going to also reach out to the LLC member, whoever it is that's wanting to sign off on this contract. What is your signing authority? Well, where do we get that? We'll scroll down. We'll show you where you get that because it's really important. It's going to be in the operation docs. Craig, if you scroll down, there we go. The person that the property is authorized to is the person who can bind the LLC to the contract. And you don't want to wait till closing to do this because title needs to know who this is up front as well. Because if you don't have the right person at the closing table that signed off on this contract, you have a huge nightmare. So the authorization documents that are in the operation documents from the LLC, it'll have that. It's usually a manager. It could be several managers. It's just the authority to sign. It's a simple thing. So make sure, when you're getting ready to do listings, don't just throw it up there. That's the LLC. We need more than that. Not because we're trying to be difficult. We want to make sure you got the right person that's legally allowed to sign to make this a binding contract.
Both the contract and the deed.
And the deed. Do both.
Because
On
it's
all
not necessarily a enforceable contract if you don't have the right person signing it.
No, it's not. And with the level of fraud that's out there right now, get into the habit of pulling the deeds and putting them in your loops. I know I've said this a million times, but there's a reason for that. You'll save yourself a lot of time. If the deed says Jack Jones and the person standing in front of you is Mary Smith, there's a problem.
And it's really no different than a trust.
It's not. Exactly. Same thing. Same.
If the property's in
And
trust, title company's going to see the trust paperwork. So you need to get the trust paperwork and say, hey, who has the authority to sign for this trust?
yeah, because title's going to come in and have the person that has the trust sign a affidavit certifying that the trust is still alive and kicking, that they're still the trust members and so forth prior to closing, so that again we don't have that snafu at the end of the closing at the closing table. Power of attorney, same thing. You want to make sure you have a copy of the power of attorney if somebody is signing saying that they're on behalf of someone. And a durable power of attorney, where you're dealing with people that are maybe incapacitated or so forth, maybe like in a nursing home or something like that, you're selling grandma's place. A durable power of attorney is even stronger than a regular power of attorney, because in the event that you become mentally unable to speak for yourself, that durable power of attorney is going to kick in for you on your behalf. Now, we don't want to be getting into all that when we're dealing with real estate transactions at the final hour. If somebody says they have a durable power of attorney and they show up, they don't. They've done all the signing for nothing.
And I just highlighted that section. The power of attorney must comply with Florida law,
Correct.
right? Because there's certain things in Florida law that that a power of attorney must have in order
Right.
to take property. It has to be
Right.
specifically say, has the authority to sign for real estate.
Right. Has to be sworn, two witnesses.
So
Yeah.
your out-of-state buyers or out-of-country buyers may not have that particular language in there. And
Right.
that's something to find out in the beginning rather than at the end. Like,
Correct.
we're closing, oh shit. We don't want to get to that point.
Yeah. This stops your deals from blowing up just by being really super thorough up front. Take your time, take a deep breath. I know everybody gets excited when they get listings, but we have to go through the steps, because if you put the cart before the horse and you haven't done those necessary steps, you may in fact not have anything at all. You don't want to go through that.
Nope. Cool. Well, let's master the contract Friday for you guys today. We're a little bit over, not bad. But what a bunch of stuff that we really have to deal with, right? And we got to be cognizant of all these things at the right time. Yes, when the person dies, their power of attorney goes with them,
That's right. Yep.
which is a whole nother issue.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it
And
is.
hopefully you won't deal with these things, but the more transactions you do, the more likely you are to have problems like this that come along.
Oh, sure. Especially when you got people retiring, coming from other states, and we're seeing that a lot over here.
Well, you guys keep us busy with all your questions coming through.
It's been a busy week. We have been hopping.
And fighting with buyer broker agreements and fighting with all this other stuff. And
Sure, procuring cause, all that fun stuff.
yeah,
Not so fun.
I want to go there today. We'll talk
Nope.
about it later.
Nope. Nope.
All right. Well, today's Friday, February 28th. So 28th, this is the last day of February.
I know it's a short month. Watch your
Wow.
timelines on your contracts. You don't want to find yourself running out of contract, forgetting that it's a short month, especially when you're doing your closings for March.
Yep. So happy end of February. Thanks for a great month. And if you have any questions, of course, always raise your hand and ask. We are
Like
here.
us on Facebook.
Yeah. Find Kathleen on Facebook. Call me.
See ya.
You want a copy of this doc? I can send it out.
Sure, send it out. That'd be great.
All right. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday.
Awesome weekend. We'll be working. See ya.